Hello, people. I'll start you off tonight, but I'm going to do a little something different tonight. And I do hope you guys enjoy it tonight. Okay, I'm starting off with the issue of Florida. As most of you know, I've lived there. But starting off with this is this was more important than most of the broadcasts I've done. I've lived in Florida for the majority of my life. A lot of people that I'm friends with and some that I'm not friends with but associated with. I also have have a bit of family there too. I've met some people that have been extremely harsh to me also, and I'm no longer there mostly, but I am there in essence also at the same time. So for me, this is very personal and needed. Some of my neighbors in my old apartment complex in Lynn Village apartments and Clara Place Apartments in DeLand are having a wicked time on the issue of power and also on the issue of damage that has been done to these properties. Some of the people in those apartment complexes, and not just those two, do not have power right now. They need the power to cool certain medications, such as insulin, which is extremely needed for survival amongst diabetics. And there are other medications that are needed for people of various purposes. The reason this broadcast is important is because the dangers of what goes on there from the past and now the present. Many people know that Florida has a lot of dangerous storms and other conditions that are equally as harsh. There is wildlife that can be wonderful but extremely dangerous, along with being deadly, from snakes to boars, bears, even various types of birds of prey. In saying all this, energy is lacking there, and not just with power lines. A hurricane, let's see this. But like I said, a can hit there, and hurricanes can sometimes cause tornadoes, dangerous wildlife, and come out of nowhere, and also have a tendency to start sinkholes. This this does not even cover the reality of flying objects going around everywhere with debris that is everywhere also. And you can take something like a deck of cards. You throw it up in the air during a hurricane, they can come out and act just like blades because of how thin they are. There are people there that are now officially homeless and have nowhere else to go but in their vehicles or are being forced to stay in a hotel. As a lot of you know, many of those hotels are not exactly ideal. And if you have children in those hotels, and not just with adults, that can feel like a spatial nightmare. Their energy is being pushed to the point of being drained, depressed. They are having massive anxiety issues and many other types of issues. Good natured prayers are very nice, but these people need action. If you have loved ones that are there, especially in hard hit areas, check on them. And if you can, give to certain charitable organizations. If you can, if you can, if you are in a position and have the time, try doing some volunteering, which can really help out anyone and to some extent make you feel a little bit better about yourself, knowing you did your part to help people out. Another issue to take into consideration, which a lot of people don't, is the homeless situation. Many of them in Florida live in the woods and even in some amount of abandoned properties and abandoned buildings, even abandoned storefronts. And there are things that they can do, and there are many things that they can't do to fend for themselves. They do not have a lot of resources that they need in a general way to survive. There are tons of ways to help, though, if they need it. If you can, check your local news organizations, such as a local newspaper. In DeLand, there's a certain newspaper I love half to death. I shouldn't mention it because I don't want to get myself in any trouble. But those local newspapers, they have lists of where you can donate, whether your time, your money, or this or that. They have those resources that a lot of people don't have. And they can give any information of items and money that can go to do the best good for those in need. Another thing to keep in mind, people are in other areas of Florida. Take note of your and have a prepping place for your emergencies. Along with this, if anyone is from the power company and is also in some kind of authority figure or even some kind of housing manager, be good to them. And especially landlords by the name of Kim R. She's been a past one, nothing more than wonderful, and so is her husband, and great, great people. But the thing is, with her and the organization and the company, they're there to help, especially in these tough times. And with all that, stay as good as you can, no matter how stressed you are, trying to have as much patience as you possibly can. But like I said, stay calm and have some patience with them. And they are going through a lot also due to this issue. And in the words of the great Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, we're all in this together. And a big low goes to so many people that I have to give some amount of anonymity to, but they've really been there for people. And even people that I like or that I don't like, or they like me or they don't like me, they're still being there for their neighbors and their loved ones and all that other stuff. And but those let me reread that right. But those that are in certain communities and in and out of the supernatural communities have been good to me also. And even those that have nothing to do with those communities have been good to me, whether it's the big three of Abrahamic beliefs, they've been excellent to me also. So whatever community you're in, part of Florida, be good to people. And also, if you're outside of Florida, just check on your loved ones. And just check on your loved ones if you can. And like I said, if you can't donate money, if you can, it's not required, but I guess you can say donate goods or donate goods, or even if you want to donate your time, if you are in Florida or this or that. And so I want to say thank you all for listening to all of this. And let me get started. Potential energy is that that has electric ions that charges ions. Basically, potential energy is energy that is stored before the use of energy. That is also according to livescience.com. In other words, a body at rest will stay at rest, if you want to think of it that way. The energy that is being used actively, according to KanaAcademy.com, it's an body of motion that is in motion. So in a general sense, whenever it comes to that kind of energy, energy that is being actively used, that is that is kinetic energy. Okay. The human body at best, at rest, produces over 100 kilowatts of energy when it is at rest. During bursts of energy, it can produce over 2,000 watts of electricity, according to extremetech.com. The reason that this is being mentioned is because it is being used to show that the human body does not necessarily die that the human brain and electricity doesn't die when the body is expired. One of the main laws of physics is that matter may neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be changed. So, in saying this, the electrical currents in the body just do not die out, and they just don't die out. It dissipates into different places. Electrical currents go everywhere in the three states of matter: gas, solid, and liquid. Also, with all this, energy is in everything, in anything and everything that happens. Whether it is mechanical or organic, energy flows even in the way of the supernatural also. According to humanamplified.com, a ghost is an impression of someone from a certain place and time with a certain part of life. Ghosts are those that can oftentimes reenact a certain part of life that was important. That part of life can be something of great tragedy, murder, suicide, a robbery, an assault, or even a sexual assault that turned into a killing, unfortunately. Many people with PTSD unfortunately relive horrible moments that they are unable to shake off because of the trauma that they have incurred. Some people are able to move past and survive it, and others are not able to let go of the trauma. Figuratively, though, if that was the last moment of their life, shaking that stuff off for something that is not necessarily of this plane of existence is tough as nails to break free from, if not impossible. Spirits are different from this. And spirits are different from this. Spirits, in theory, are the actual person that has passed on to the next realm. There is no real known reason for this that anybody knows. There are a lot of theories as to why this has happened, but no one truly knows once again. Spirits are oftentimes conscious of what they are and can be thought of as aware of how they are or were. Many of them search for answers and oftentimes can not ascend to the next level without help. A theory that people have is that spirits are entities that do not let go and come to terms with what has happened in the previous life. With this, spirits can sometimes visit individuals. They may touch a shoulder, giving a cold sensation to that of the living person. They oftentimes do this to bring comfort in the best way they can. Sometimes spirits can sometimes move through things of various sizes and even different weights, such as a book or even a large television. There are times where spirits can give a person a small injury, such as a scratch, and previously said, cold sensations. The way this is done and the way they do it, in theory, is by using energy in the way they can get it. Certain crystals, such as salt crystals, have a bit of a current to them, and they can power the spirit. There are times that they can use certain foods that have certain acids that can also carry a small charge. As you can think of, taking into consideration citrus fruits. Citrus fruits have electrolytes that are able to free ions and can make a certain amount of a charge. Then there is the wall sockets, which is pretty obvious, but you can plug into a device. That you can plug into a device and use the device, such as a vacuum cleaner or a hair dryer, or even a straightening iron. Then there are those animals that generate certain amounts of electricity, and humans are able to conduct electricity along with them. The thing is, Everything needs energy, including spirits, and these entities, such as spirits, take it when and how they can, from sending a message to the living, moving objects, and just being mischievous. They do need power to use to be able to use it to power themselves up. Most people do not see them, but a minority have a way of detecting them. A selected few individuals can sometimes hear them, see them, or even feel them. No one knows how this is done or what can trigger this to happen. The reality is, it is reality. People are able to have an entity answer questions, and the living can repeat what the deceased has said. Some entities can present themselves visually to a person and show them things that most of the entire world's population cannot do. With this, the entity can show dangers to a person. They can do things that show what happened to an individual to maybe even give justice to the deceased. People are able to feel an entity in the way of sensations and emotions that can be triggered by the entity. There are times where an entity can drop the pressure in a room, causing someone's ears to pop, and they can even take energy out of the room to cause a temperature drop, leaving a person to have personal experiences that can be easily disregarded by others. In this way of not being enough to be considered evidence of a paranormal or supernatural sort of event within the home, because they are personal events, not necessarily noticeable in a general sense. Spirits and ghosts can take and use energy from pretty much anyone or anything. One group that is seldomly or rarely discussed, depending on your point of view, are psi vamps or pranic vamps. Pranic vamps are not necessarily people that look like the early 20th century black and white Eastern European vampire. Pranic vampires not always look like Kiefer Lee Sutherland from The Lost Boys either, and they do not look like characters from the Twilight films. Pranic vampires are not really stereotypical looking. They can look hip and cool, and they can look into a stereotypical mundane person that you would think is of no threat to anyone. Certain people, though, compare them to spectral entities in the way of taking energy. Many of those pranic vampires, psi vamps, will do what they can to cause or provoke a reaction to get a certain emotional response or responses. If you have a pranic vampire that lives for positive energy, he and or she can be seen getting gifts and giving gifts to someone special in their life. A child, a significant other, a coworker, etc., etc. There are certain psi vamps that will cause a response of another emotion of sympathy. They can say something that sensitive and talk about a painful part of their life to a person to just hear it. But in doing so, they are taking that energy of the way of emotional responses. So there are a slew of emotions that a psi vamp may want to have, and then there are those that are solo emotional energies a psi vamp may want. They are sometimes referred to as living specters, but unlike ghosts and spirits, they can only take from the living, not from wall sockets, crystals, and other things. The reason they do this is because they do not have sufficient ways to power themselves with just food and nutrients alone. They need to have this energy to keep going, and so keep going. And otherwise they will feel sick and tired and extremely drained on a regular basis. If they do not hear their version of if they do not do their version of feeding with all this with this, they can feel empowerment and short-lived for whenever they do this, they can have their feeling of empowerment, but it's very short-lived. When that moment is done, they go back to doing what they can and doing what they can to feed. They also have a tendency to feed too much and sometimes too often. When this happens, they can feel overwhelmed and have a notion of massive anxiety. They may have trouble focusing on one particular thing and even have symptoms of ADHD, which without having it, and symptoms of anxiety. With ADHD, a person that has a chemical sort of reaction, or basically to some degree, they have trouble concentrating on just one thing. Everything, I guess you can say, is a sensory overdrive. They notice everything and it's everywhere. Their attention is not on just one thing, it's on many things. So that's how it goes with that. With all this, with even ghosts, you could say that the recording of a past. Let me make sure I got this right. I am so sorry, people. So, is there any questions for the time being? Okay, let me check.
Seems Sam has dropped off. As Sam was saying earlier about the hurricane and stuff, we have the scrolling thing at the bottom. If you can donate uh, to the American Red Cross. Red Cross is not just the people that uh, take blood and stuff like that. They are also around for whenever and whoever needs help. Um, I have a couple friends that live in the Central Florida area, and I got pictures of their house. It's pretty bad. But Red Cross will help them out with getting some food, some shelter. Uh, Insurance is what will end up having to help rebuild. But if you look at it this way, if you're any little bit of a donation that you're able to give towards the American Red Cross, um, it goes to help those people that are in need. Figure they've been to the American Red Cross sends disaster relief people to Puerto Rico, Haiti, uh, Central Florida, Central and Southern Florida. They're sending people to the Charleston, South Carolina area to help out. So you just remember. I know. I see you, Sam. I see you in the in the back room there. I'll bring you back up. I don't know what happened to you. What happened to you?
I have no clue.
And as most of you people see, it's that time of year again. Time for the breast cancer awareness. So if you also want to donate to something other than uh, the disaster relief or Hurricane Ian, you can give to the Susan G. Komen breast cancer. So I'll let you get back to what you were talking about, Sam.
Yes, sir. And thank you very much. Where was I at? Okay. Uh, With this, the entity, I'll go back to the entire paragraph. Most people do not see this, but a minority of a way of detecting them is a selected few individuals that can sometimes hear them, see them, and even feel them. No one knows how this is done or what can trigger this to happen. The reality is, it is reality. People are able to have an entity answer questions, and living can repeat what the deceased has said. Some entities can present themselves visually to a person and show them things that most of the entire world's population cannot do. With this, the entity can show dangers to a person, and they can do things to show what happened to the individual to make them even give justice to the deceased. People are able to feel an entity in the way of sensations. They can feel their emotions, and they can be triggered by an entity. There are times where an entity can draw the pressure in a room, causing individuals' ears to pop. And someone even taking energy out of the room can cause a temperature drop, and not just pressure, for people to have personal experiences that can be easily disregarded by others in the way of not being enough to be considered evidence of the paranormal as supernatural. Spirits and ghosts can take and use energy from pretty much anyone and anything. One group that is seldomly discussed, and depending on your point of view, are psi-vamps or pranic vampires. Pranic vampires are not necessarily people that look like the earlier 20th century looking black and white vampires or Eastern European vampires. The pranic vampires, they do not always look like Kiefer Lou Sutherland from the Lost Boys, and they do not look like characters from the Twilight Zone in a general sense. Pranic vampires are not necessarily stereotypical looking. They can look hip, they can look cool, and they can look stereotypical mundane that you would think it has never been a threat. Some people compare them to spectral entities in the way of taking energy. Many of those pranic vampires or psi-vamps will do what they can to provoke a reaction, to get emotional reactions. If you have a pranic vampire that lives for positive energy, that he or she can be seen getting and giving gifts to someone special in their life, a child, a significant other, coworker. There are certain psi-vamps that will cause a response of another emotion of sympathy. They can also they can some and they can say some excuse me, and they can say something that is sensitive to talk about or painful for a person to hear. But doing so, they are taking in that energy of that emotional response. There are a slew of emotions that psi-vamps may want, and then there are solo emotional injuries a psi-vamp may want. They are sometimes referred to as living specters. But unlike ghosts and spirits, they can only take that from the living and do not take from wall sockets or crystals or anything or other things like that. The reason they do this is because they do not have the sufficient way to power themselves on their own with just food and nutrients. They need to have this energy source to keep going otherwise. Otherwise, they will feel sick and tired and extremely drained on a regular basis. If they do not do this version of feeding, with this, they can feel empowered and strong, at least for a while. When that moment is done, they go back to doing what they can to do a feeding. They also have a tendency to feed too much and sometimes too often. When this happens, they can feel overwhelmed and have a notion of massive anxiety. With they may have this focusing on one particular thing. It may have even have symptoms of ADHD without having it, and symptoms of severe anxiety. In a general sense, with ADHD, if it's left untreated, individuals that have it can have a chemical imbalance. If they walk down the street, they can notice things left and right and over the top everywhere. In other words, they will notice like a nut falling on the ground from a tree while a car is pulling up, and certain sounds. Basically, to some degree, with ADHD, it can be symptoms of what they call sensory overload. And like I said, creates anxiety whenever they overfeed. Well, going back to something I said, with all this, ghosts, you could say, they're a recording of the past of what a person has been through, and spirits are the actual consciousness of the person that is deceased. With this, in order to have form of some kind, energy has to be used in order to power this kind of supernatural activity. That power or energy can come from electricity in the walls. A power bill can go up a little bit even if no one is there at the residence. So, in a general sense, if an entity is not in an empty apartment and the landlord is trying to rent it out, that if there's an entity there, that power bill that was $45 can go up to $52 if there is an entity in there, because they're soaking up power from wall. Okay. A power bill can go up a little bit more if no one is in the residence. Another way ghosts and spirits are empowered is by taking heat out of the room. People can walk through that with that, drop the temperature and feel it. Many people do what they can in what they call ghost hunting. We'll have temperature meters and detect drops from temperature in what they call haunted areas of the homes. Another thing that energy can be taken from by ghosts and spirits is through batteries. People that do the paranormal investigations often have 3 batteries for certain devices, if not all of their devices, ready to go. And the reason they do this is because of how certain that certain entities want to be known or do not want to be known will drain the batteries in anything of battery power, so that way the investigators depend on those backups. And the reason they do that is because if there's no equipment, they can't record the evidence. And that's in theory why spectral entities do that. A person can go into a place that is haunted and deal with their day-to-day lives in that residence or business, feel wiped out mentally and physically because the entities are taking the energy from that room, the batteries, the wall sockets, heat in the room, and even the individuals. A ghost and spirit can also drain mentality in certain ways and take different parts of it. The draining of a person can give feelings of depression, anxiety, irritability, manic states of mind, combativeness, and other issues. Another group that I did not mention and I completely forgot are healers. Healers are different, healers and energy transfers are different in the way that they can, and many of them that are living can give energy. Those healers not necessarily soak up energy from outside sources, and energy givers, they give energy through their own body and their own minds. So in a general sense, if somebody If somebody doesn't even talk, let's say they're not a PSIVAM, if they're an energy person that can donate energy, they can touch your hand, and oftentimes, not always, they can make your hand feel better. And you might have a small electrical shock and you're moving your hand better, which basically they're able to do. Energy transfers, though, takes the raw energy, not something that is, how can I put this? They can take the energy and it's raw energy and they can send it to somebody, whether in person or from a distance. And in saying this, they can power up the individual, making them feel better. Sometimes, or even empowered. So, say, like if a person gives a momentous speech, a great, wonderful speech, that person can feel, the individual who has been given the energy can feel better. They can feel like they have less pain. They can feel they can feel as if wounds are healing, pain is less, and just better about themselves. And that's the power of healers and energy transfers. According to oxfordlanguages.com, is the strength and vitality to do the work. Energy is said to be the power derived from the utilization of physical and chemical resources to provide light and heat to work machines. If this is the case, why is it hard to believe that spirituality can be a way of proving that energy does exist within a person? Everything on the planet that is of life has some amount of heat signature. In general, according to mindbodygreen.com, is an invisible source. Heat and energy transfer signatures is an invisible sources that surround something that all living things have. The reason that this is brought up is because of the theory of what powers that aura. In a general sense, is the energy. It is the energy that is produced from the person or entity or even animal or whatever. One of the ways of proving this in a scientific way is the heat signatures. If someone uses infrared sighting for say like something on a rifle scope, they can show different parts of a person's heat. Not basically making it to where you can sit there and see it, the person's body heat, even if it's concrete. This is commonly used by police to catching fugitives that may be on the run. A fugitive can run into a place at night full of massive heavy brush or even certain bodies of water, and the infrared scope that a helicopter may use can catch the person a majority of the time. With this thought process, energy can be used to power homes through electrical grids that lead into a home. Skeptics say that if this is real, why is it that energy cannot be seen? There's a comparison in this. Many of the types of microorganisms cannot be seen with the naked eye. But we are unable to see things such as unable to see oxygen and types of and we're unable to see other gases like carbon dioxide, with a lot of other things like microorganisms. The reason for this is the term is called translucent. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it is diffusing light so that the objects beyond cannot be seen clearly. To some extent, that means invisible to the human eye. If they're saying this, that means just because it cannot be seen, it does not mean it's not there. With all this being said, we know that energy in every aspect, that means that energy is really there. Whether anyone wishes to admit it or not, energy is in everything and everywhere, Potential energy is the energy at rest, and kinetic energy is that of motion. The same can be said with life, with human life. A body at rest stays at rest, and a body in motion stays in motion. Everything has some amount of energy, whether this is mechanical energy or organic energy. Mechanical energy is very complex in the way that of it needing certain sources like that of cars with gasoline, or even toys that children play with that need batteries. Organic technology can be made from say like plasma to make certain medications, or even soft drinks that are made from corn as sodas that have certain amounts of high fructose corn syrup, which leads to energy, which basically is organic energy to make something. There are certain entities, such as ghosts, as ghosts need energy. Ghosts are the sort of rewind of certain events that most of the time are somewhat tragic, if not over the top tragic. A ghost has a way of reliving that painful moment over and over again because of residual energy that moment has had and the impression it has had and all that has been given. With ghosts, there is nothing off limits to getting what it feels like, what it actually needs. With spirits, in theory, there are actual souls and the consciousness of what the person was and while it was alive. A spirit has a tendency to wander where it wishes to go to in search of something or someone. It may have purposes that may be easily explained or completely foreign to the living and even the spirit itself, in a general sense, because it feels compelled to. A spirit may use more energy than a ghost because it feels like it has to do something that's important or vital, or what it takes to do those things. Those purposes can be something of a heroic nature, greed, or other things. In doing this, for certain purposes, it must maintain a certain form to get the job done. So depending on the desperation and the need, a spirit will consume energy to get the job done. Certain groups of people and this is extremely generalizing, people that are intuitive or psychic. They're able to pick up on certain energies in a certain setting. They can go into your residence and pick up on highly active wiring. They can even pick up on energy of the deceased, auditory, emotional, or visual. No one really knows no one knows how they do this. The reality is that they can. When a spirit or a ghost does not have an overwhelmed amount of energy, they can still pick up on it. Certain sound waves can shatter glass. Light sources that are very powerful can burn a hole through metal, such as a laser. Emotional energy can be picked up in the way of someone being empathic. Other times, other people will associate those energies with the living, but they can also be picked up on energy that goes along with the deceased. Another part of the supernatural world is that of pranic vampires. Pranic vampire needs to have emotional energy. Pranic vampire may love energy of all sorts or may prefer a single type of emotional energy to get a certain emotional response. Oftentimes, pranic vampires that live for negative emotional responses and just sit back and watch the energy roll in. Technology is able to produce energy and detect energy. If a fugitive is on the run and unable to be found, in say like a heavily wooded area, heat detecting equipment is able to detect the individual's energy and pull it into police custody. People say that there is not enough evidence to show proof that energy is everywhere. If you take something such as a flu virus, and someone has it, if a person sneezes, you may not be able to see the particle of the virus spread so like it's on a bus. If those particles are inhaled, there is a chance of someone spreading that flu virus or cold virus or whatever kind. And as people spreading that virus goes everywhere. Those viruses use energy to spread itself and to go out and to go to different hosts, contaminating others, making it a small plague, turning it into a small plague. The examples go on of how energy can be considered invisible, but is not invisible. It's just naked to the human eye. Those forms of energy have proven to exist time and time again. And the concept of spiritual energy is that it can never be disproven, but has been attempted to be disproven. As mentioned earlier, the human body produces a lot of energy. Within the individual that passes away, those currents do not just die out. They may go to other places, but do not die. In a general sense, they are the essence of the soul. So essentially, everything is tied into one thing or another in any energy way. And there are different forms of it. But spectral energy is still energy. So, and that concludes, well, what I will say is this: energy is still energy no matter how you look at it and the way you want to look at it. And at the end of the day, we can sit there and speculate, this is real, this isn't real. And I don't blame people for thinking that. I don't blame them at all. But you have to remember, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Skeptics, atheists, and there's nothing wrong with that, but atheists have the notion that if I can't see it, it's not there. And I think I've proven that with the report that I've had, and history has proven that report. Now, oftentimes, atheists will sit there and say one thing. They'll say, what was it? Atheists will sit there and say dissipation proves that there's no soul. Dissipation, I get that reasoning, but it's not practical. You take you take a handful of dirt and everything, and you throw it in the air. The wind catches it, and guess what? It spreads out. All that dirt spreads out. But the thing is, even though it spreads out, doesn't mean it's not still there. It still is. It's just different and out there. So the thing is, the concept of dissipation is not the most practical part of it. Like I said, it does not prove that sort of thing. What else is there? In the way of, like I was saying, ghosts are the rewind of a tragic event. Majority of the time, the tragic event. Ghosts are the recording of it. And unfortunately, people have it over and over, time and time again. And those people who've had that ghost, oftentimes, it's just a traumatic event and they can't stop. I guess you could say added on to it. What else is there? Added on to it, dirt, debris. And then you got the 3 states of matter whenever it comes to energy. Water is the biggest one. Like if you take water and you freeze it, it turns to ice, but the ice is still water. And water, which is liquid, obviously. And then you take water in the way of heating it up, it turns to steam. Precipitation, steam, this and that, and everything. Condensation, but guess what? That water is still there. Like if any of you guys have seen some of my broadcasts while I was in Florida and everything, um, you could see me sweating half to death in the humidity of a graveyard or this or that. And it's not that it's not great, but but I look like a sweaty mess. I mean, it's like say like with me, it's like I used to be 375 pounds back in the day. But I make jokes about myself and I see nothing wrong with that. Like I was so fat that whenever I looked like I was sweating bloody murder, no, I was just so fat I was sweating peeling an orange. But that's a really bad joke, and I think I destroyed that. But like I said, what I'm getting at is that energy is still energy, whether it's of the mind, whether it's of the spirit, whether it's of gasoline, whether it's the sunlight. Energy is everywhere, and there's no getting around it. We can discuss it all day and all night, but that's how it is. And that's how it is. And at the end of the day, we have to remember that's how it goes. But originally, what I was talking about earlier is on the issue of Florida. Florida, to me, I have a lot of ties there. I know a lot of people. I love a lot of people. Whether they hate me or they love me, I don't care. I care about them. Now, with Florida, I met a lot of homeless people and everything, and they have nothing to be helped with. They have nothing. And if you can help them, more power to you. I respect that. Now, people that have homes, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a mobile home, whether it's a house, they're having it tough because many of those homes have been destroyed. Many of those homes are over the top destroyed and traumatically. And one place I know of, they have an oak that played high five with a house. And the oak is now a decoration in the living room. Now, many of those people don't have insurance considering their jobs and everything, and they need help and they need help bad because they can't go back in their apartments, get their stuff, and move out. And that's tragic. And then there's people that have it worse than them whenever it comes to, say, like medications. Their medications, like insulin, have to be refrigerated depending on the type. Now, if there's no power for that refrigerator, all that insulin is gone. It's no more. You cannot use it. And that means a lot of people are going to get sick and potentially die. I know one person who hasn't had power for a while since the hurricane happened. Love her half to death, and she's busting her tail in. But coming home to a sweaty house and this and that, it's not easy. Then I have my old landlord, Kim, and I can't say her last name, but I miss the hell out of her. With her, she is busting her tail in, working with people, cooperating with people, trying to get this done, and she hasn't had power for 5 days. She doesn't have power for 5 days. And in certain ways, and her husband and her are doing everything it takes to make a difference in that sort of way. And she's doing everything she can. She's basically a hero. And if you knew more about her past, you'd really think she's a hero. But she's doing everything she can to keep things going. I know. Then you got the issue of sinkholes. If they're in the middle of a road and everything, and that sinkhole happens, you could lose your life. Your car could be gone. You could lose your life. Now, if a sinkhole happens next to your house, well, it's a Florida earthquake if you want to consider it that way. There are so many things that are going on and everything. Energy, this, that, unpleasantness, misery, and all this other stuff. Now, I am doing all this in a general sense to do promotion of the issue of power and everything. And people need that. They also need a place to live. They need this and they need that. If you can help with the American Red Cross, from donations. You don't have to give cash. If you can't give donations, give cash. If you can't give cash, give your time. Give your time, and also go to the Red Cross. You go to the Red Cross, and you can give to them and everything. Donate your time. At the least you can do, add it on to it, is check on your loved ones. Check on your people. Check on your loved ones. Call them if you can. Give them a text or this or that. And do what you can to help them out, whether it's a kind word or this or that. And Floridians are very tough. Not all of us are the biggest and brightest. I mean, look at me. But you have to remember, they're still human beings, and like you, they're having it tough. And I have a lot of ties to them, and I always will. Okay. So, is there any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I guess for now, I will say this much. I appreciate and love each and every one of you who are seeing this. You guys are genuine heroes and very good people that people like me depend on. And you people have been good to me from Smith family. We all love you.
We love you too, Sam.
But yeah, for the most part, like I said, with all this, I guess there's no questions. You have any questions, Chad? Linda, do you have any questions?
No, I need sleep, which will rejuvenate my energy.
Okay. All right, then I will say I'll part ways on stage left.
Just I'll put you down at the bottom. We'll talk after.
Of course.
Don't run away. So as most of you know, oh, Anne Arundel County Public Schools, gotta love them. Someday this week we had bus service. As of tomorrow, we don't have bus service. So, as many of you know, we're on Twitch also. We've been invited. I don't know if it's actually going to happen or not. We may be going live on Twitch tomorrow. So if you want to check us out, go to twitch.tv/Smith Family Paranormal and follow us. That way, I have a couple extra followers and stuff like that. I'll put it out there that if we can get like 20 subscribers, I might do something with the goatee. Just at least 20 by my birthday on the 20th. Pink up the goatee. But tomorrow we may be, like, again, we may be going to Crybaby Bridge with another group. We've been all our group and this other group has been out there a couple times before. So hopefully it gets done. Again, there's the twitch.tv, and if you can, like Sam was saying, and I was saying earlier, donate your time. I mean, if you got a couple dollars, donate to the fund. It's going to go to help out not only getting people, possibly getting them a generator, so that way they do have energy, or helping them out with food or blankets or clothing, stuff that they've lost. It's good that they didn't lose their lives, and all they lost was some little bit of monetary but monetary things can be free bought. Your life can't be. So use your energy wisely and your resources wisely. And I know Linda, I think, has a possibility of us doing something on Friday. So if we don't do something tomorrow, we'll probably be doing something Friday. We'll try to go live Friday, I guess. So we will talk to you all later.